Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and Blizzard today did a massive developer update for World of Warcraft Shadowlands in terms of the beta, as well as changing up a whole different version of the game for the pre-patch, as well as the continued beta project. They also addressed a couple things like covenants, PvP gear, possibly adding a PvP stat to them, and in this video I want to cover all the different points they hit on today. Just kind of talk about them, give you guys the basic rundown, and overall talk about some of this news, because this is all very exciting and very brand new. First of all, if you're as confused as me what the patch 9.0.2 is all about, I have some explanation, but I'm still a little fuzzy on the details. So it looks like Blizzard will be splitting 9.0.1 and 9.0.2 as two different versions of the patch. 0.1 will be accessible to PTR and will have, I think, a more stable, finalized version of what the Shadowlands pre-patch experience will look like. While 9.0.2 is going to be the beta version, where developers can really go ham and really tear through whatever the patch is and the balancing and all those systems without having to affect a stable version of 9.0.1. I'm expecting that with 9.0.2, we're going to have a lot more changes on the horizon, especially from the development side and classes, since that's quite a bit of information that Blizzard also covered in this developer update. So I don't think this is going to change in terms of like what we will see. I think it's easier for Blizzard to have two different versions of the game available for them to do a lot of testing. But it is pretty safe to assume that there's going to be a lot of new changes getting added into the beta in the near few days or maybe even weeks. So I'm very interested to see what Blizzard will have for us to play with in the patch 9.0.2. Next, Blizzard talked about alt leveling, and to condense this section, Blizzard wanted to change up the way we level alts. Normally, like in Legion, you would be able to play whatever zones you wanted, and when you play your alts, you would choose which zones you want to play. There is going to be this kind of like level scaling in this expansion as well, but it's going to be a little bit different. For example, when you level your alts in Shadowlands, you won't have to do the main story all over again, like you usually do when you play any of your other characters. You could just start a covenant, start doing world quests and bonus zones and bonus quests and bonus objectives in different zones, maybe even do some side quests that you might have skipped in your main, and get experience from it. It's different, but I think it's a good kind of different, because I think it would get pretty boring to play through the same story over and over and over. I mean, just me remembering playing through Legion, and while there are 4 different zones, eventually a character will have to play through all of them, so at least you can choose which order you start in, but after about your 10th or 12th alt, all of it gets pretty boring. This is great for anybody who wants to just kickstart their character and you already know which covenant you want to play, so you can start getting some progress for that covenant, even though you're not max level. However, if you still are not sure which covenant you want to play and you want to test out all the abilities, playing through the storyline is going to have a small advantage, because this you'll be able to play through the story of Shadowlands all over again, and you'll be able to re-experience all the different covenant abilities, the signature abilities, as well as the class abilities. This is really good because players will have more choices of how they want to request, and I really do want to try their new, different version of alt leveling. I wonder if it'll be faster, longer, or if it'll be about the same time that it takes for your main to level through the main story. Next, Blizzard did a small snippet on Torghast, and to condense that section, you're going to have a lot earlier of a start into Torghast. Right now, the introductory questline that kind of teaches you the basics of Torghast takes a little too long. It's like trying to get your cloak right now in BFA on a brand new alt. So Blizzard wants to condense that storyline and the tutorial a lot more, so you can start playing through Torghast, get access to your legendary room as soon as possible, and start playing through Twists and Corridors if that's so you choose, which is a good thing. Also, Blizzard have finally managed to describe Twists and Corridors as a challenge mode, so it looks like Blizzard understands that this is basically the Mage Tower 2.0 into Shadowlands. So that means the way they're going to balance it is going to be a good thing. I thought I should probably throw that in, as challenge mode is going to be filled with a bunch of rewards for completing it, as well as cosmetics. So I wonder what kind of cosmetics we might be able to get from there. It'd be really cool if Blizzard were to add some sort of a leaderboard to the Twists and Corridors to show which players have gotten the furthest in Twists and Corridors, to see which classes and specs are doing amazing performance, which abilities they've used, like the different anima powers, maybe even which classes sped run through them the fastest. I think different kinds of challenges would be really cool to see in some kind of a leaderboard, whether online or maybe even in-game. I think that would be really cool. Then Blizzard talked a little bit about covenants, but I will come back with covenants towards the end of the video because that is a pretty heavy topic. Blizzard also mentioned that PvP itemizations are actually going to have some sort of a bonus. They realized that PvP gear, they either need to add more pieces on there or they will need some sort of a specific stat. It's really difficult to balance PvP and PvE against one another, so they decided, screw it, we're just gonna give it some sort of a PvP bonus. Nothing specific has been announced yet, so people are wondering if we're going to have Warlords of Draenor type scaling, if maybe we're going to have PvP power or PvP resilience being re-added back into the game, or maybe some sort of a tier bonus with like a 2-tier, 3-tier, 4-tier, 8-tier bonus from PvP. Whatever the fix is going to be, it has to happen because, well, the community has been asking for one, and second, it just feels that Blizzard might have an easier time balancing items for dungeons and raids and PvP separately if PvP gear dominated PvP and PvE gear just wasn't nearly as good. It just would be easier. Yes, it means you'll probably have to carry on you at all times 2 separate sets of gear out in the open world in war mode. One for killing rares and killing mobs to get your world quest done faster, and one in case somebody tries to jump you in PvP. Even though that's not exactly how I would have fixed it, I do hope this leads to a more balanced version of PvP nonetheless. Blizzard also addressed sockets, as that's the only other RNG aspect in the game left that was from the Warforging Titan Forging system. The random chance for you to get a piece of gear with a socket. First of all, gems are important to the game, so sockets are definitely staying. So jewel crafters, rejoice. You won't have to give up on your favorite profession in order to make gold for the next expansion. However, sockets can also be now bought from Venari in the Maw in order to buy sockets on those endgame pieces of gear that you decided that are worth committing a socket to. Very similar to how in Battle for Azeroth we can buy sockets on certain pieces of loot. Another thing is, sockets are going to be only on specific pieces of gear, like helmets, rings, necklaces, bracers, and belts. So at most you can have 6 different pieces of gear with a socket to limit their power. Sockets will still drop in an RNG fashion, so some players will get super lucky on a specific socket in a specific best in slot piece, but with a way for you to earn them, it does limit their impact. Also, by limiting the amount of pieces of gear that can have a socket from 13 to 14 down to 6, it's going to severely reduce the power gap between a player in best in slot gear fully socketed and somebody in best in slot gear without any sockets. So it won't feel nearly as bad to get, I guess, unlucky. I think there's still going to be some woes from the community in terms of, oh, my class didn't get sockets, oh, this random guy dropped a socket. But at least this is a better way to keep jewel crafting as a viable profession, allow people to get the sockets when they needed, when they wanted to earn them on specific endgame loot, without making it all completely an RNG fiesta. Finally, we'll be talking about covenants, and this one Blizzard decided that they want to put their foot down and state that they are not going to make covenants switchable, at least in this update. We'll see what they say in the next update. But for this one, they want to reiterate, they want to keep covenant abilities, the unique ones and the class ones, unique. So there's no plans right now to make them switchable, like some of the pull the ripcord community have been saying. Blizzard said they want to balance the living hell out of every single covenant ability, whether it is certain passives from soulbinds, the ability itself, nerf some, buff some, reorganize and reshape certain abilities in order to make them as close to each other in terms of staying unique, but also staying relatively equal in power, so no player would feel excluded from certain pieces of content. They said that you can change talents, specs, legendaries, soulbinds, and conduits, so hopefully one ability, or I guess technically 2 abilities, won't be enough of a deal breaker whether somebody has a good experience inside of a dungeon, raid, or PvP, or doesn't. So they said that they want to commit all the time to try to make them as balanced as possible, to make the abilities as fair and as close to one another as they humanly can, but they do want to keep them as unique as they can be currently. As you will know, this has set fire under some people's bellies, and the pull the ripcord community has been really unhappy. A lot of people want to be able to switch the covenant abilities, like the actual main class ability and the signature ability, kind of on demand. It would be easier because certain abilities feel like they're designed for AoE. Certain abilities feel like they're better used in PvP. Certain abilities are a no-brainer inside of raids, and then there's other abilities that are just not that great. Players feel like Blizzard doesn't have what it takes in order to balance all these abilities against one another, as well as all those numerous soul binds that also come with being part of a certain covenant. Some players believe that you should be able to separate the power as well as the cosmetics away from each other, so you can play and look and have all the different cosmetics and rewards of one covenant, but choose your favorite ability overall. To be honest, I see it from both sides, so for me it's really difficult to make the choice of which answer is the right answer. I can see it from both ends of, hey, it's convenient, it would be kind of nice, and it would be less bad if I didn't get declined from groups because I'm a Venthyr rogue. Some players said that, well, if I'm a Venthyr rogue, well, all I can do is PvP, because all the ability just makes me PvP. I don't PvE anymore because I don't have the right abilities. Some players mentioned that, well, World of Warcraft doesn't really have that much RPG anymore. Where did the RPG go? Why is there no more RPG in an MMORPG? And I think that's the argument that I've heard for years. While others are saying that this permanent choice and the cosmetics seems too much of an RPG in an MMORPG where it doesn't belong. Some people have described World of Warcraft as an ARPG where things should be convenient, and things like permanent player power, which are RPG elements, like you might as well just go play New World, Classic WoW, or Korean MMOs, whatever that means. It's pretty evident, but this whole conduit system is, at least on the forums, looks like a mess, and forums don't always reflect what the World of Warcraft community feels. Sometimes when you look in the reviews of certain products, if you're satisfied with the product, you won't go and come and say that it's so great. In most cases, you're satisfied and you don't need to go and or review it. But if you're unsatisfied with something, people will tend to usually go and complain about it or voice their displeasure. That tends to happen more often than with pleasure. So while forums are not a direct view of how the rest of World of Warcraft or the full World of Warcraft community feels, there's definitely a good portion of people that are playing the game that are dissatisfied with this type of system. And the best way I can compile this together is there's a couple of different arguments that people on forums have brought up. So lots of players can agree that they don't like borrowed powers. The idea is stupid. We've done it before and we just keep these borrowed powers for a bit, but in the next expansion we don't use those things again. So most players can agree, however, is that we should be doing more with classes, things that are probably going to be permanent into future expansions. If we are able to improve on the current classes, we'll improve on the current playstyles and possibly enjoy our classes even more if they're well fleshed out. The covenants are cool, but the best part about them are the different cosmetics. You get to choose which storylines you want to play. You get all the different transmogs for your leather, plate, mail, whatever it is. You get different mounts, a cool maybe ability, but you get a different environment and a different angle at how the storyline for Shadowlands is going to play through. Maybe even different mini events like the flesh crafting, abomination creation, Build-A-Bear workshop that Maldrax is going to do, or hosting parties like the Venthyr. So to reach a logical conclusion, if you could make any change in the game right now before the release, wouldn't the best conclusion then be to remove Covenant abilities? I'm talking about the class abilities as well as the signature abilities, just to remove them completely out of the game. People like the cosmetical stuff, and people like being able to get different mounts. Mounts and cosmetics don't matter, and if you don't have an ability to decide between one or the other, then you don't need to worry about it. The abilities themselves are borrowed powers, and people can't ever figure out which one is going to be strongest or least strongest depending on the situation. So one of the easiest way to deal with it is to remove it flat out. If you remove the actual Covenant abilities, then Blizzard wouldn't need to spend as much time balancing those. And if you want Blizzard to spend more time balancing character stuff, all this time that they said they want to dedicate into balancing Covenant abilities, what if they were to be removed and Blizzard just spend the rest of the time for Shadowlands beta balancing classes? There's a couple things to rebut that. You could probably say, but we need these abilities in order to use them and access and progress through certain quest lines. When it comes to Bastion, Maldraxxus, maybe even Venthyr. There's a whole area where you have to teleport through this wall, otherwise your character dies. Well, they could keep those abilities for those areas in the game. So let's say you're trying to quest through Venthyr, you'll get to use those abilities, but once you join the Covenant, you lose them. So the abilities themselves would be usable while questing just for flavor, but you won't actually have them control the power of your character at max level, which is kind of where things really matter in World of Warcraft. I guess you could then point to soul binds, and the soul binds themselves have a bunch of passives. I guess the soul binds themselves are not nearly as powerful as some of these Covenant abilities. However, if the community still doesn't feel all that happy about, let's say, having all these passives, or certain classes having passives and others not having them, soulbinds could also be removed. And we could still keep conduits because those are available to your class from different content. You'll just need to bring back glyphs in the game or something. And instead of slotting in glyphs, you'll be slotting in conduits. And I guess that could be a borrowed power. But if people have an issue with conduits as well, you could also remove those because the main system of soulbinds is also removed. And all Blizzard would need to do is remove all of those conduits from the loot tables of dungeon bosses, raid bosses, and take them off from PvP vendors, like as if they never happened. So then all you're left is a different storyline that you can choose and play as much as you like in any way at any time you want to. And you still have all your cosmetic rewards, you have all your extra activities like the Ventio parties and Build-A-Bear workshop with Maldraxxus and whatever the Kyrians have and Fae have. So you can still have all those activities there for the cosmetic stuff, just for stuff that doesn't really matter in the end. But you wouldn't have to worry about those at all when it comes to deciding your player power, to figure out if you have the best covenant, best conduit, best anything really. Because if you just make them changeable like talents, that would just end up being like talents as are. Sometimes you have some really cool choices in terms of talents, and sometimes you have talents that you would never pick for any reason whatsoever, because there's always something better that fits in a variety of different situations. So I think if you were to make them interchangeable like talents would be, it wouldn't really make things that much better. It would just basically become talents 2.0, and they would be relegated to the same position as most talents are, either useful or useless. And that's not really a fix for it if you're trying to make these abilities better or trying to really fix them. So at this point, instead of relegating them to talents 2.0, at this point I think maybe the best solution, the logical solution, since this is a borrowed power, we're not going to have it from the expansion, people want more focus on classes themselves, is to remove the power gains in this system whatsoever outright. Why even mess with it, and why even try to rack our heads around which one is going to be the best or the worst, because one of these abilities is going to be the best or the worst in any way. Always certain abilities are going to be best in dungeons or in single target raids or in PvP or world quest, whatever it may be. One of the abilities is going to have to be one of the lesser abilities in the end anyway. That's just kind of how the game goes sometimes. But that's going to be all I have on the topic. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think about the conduits, the PvP stuff, everything we talked about today. I'm going to bring you guys more class updates in future videos. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another video.